Texas is one of my absolute favorite hunts every single year. Round up all bunch of buddies, go down, do some hunting, and just have a really good time. We do it a little bit different than some other people might do the state of Texas. We stay with friends, we hunt properties that we're able to get access to. Generally we're hunting cull bucks or smaller deer that it's not very glamorous. We're hunting when we can, killing what we can, and not paying much money to do it. So it's a really good time. It's kind of as close as you can get to a DIY Texas style hunt. So this year we were able to hunt two properties primarily. The first one was a relatively large piece. I think it was made up of a couple 600-acre properties that were split by a big river. So we had a couple deer on camera. We had two shooters, and it was generally you sit in a blind and you hunt over feeders, and that's just kind of how you do it. If you're not feeding the deer, then the neighbors are, and you're not going to have deer on your property. So we have these two shooters on camera. One of them is a really big wide buck, and the other's kind of a funky antlered 8-point that he's just a really cool deer. And I wanted to kill a buck that was mature and just something that caught my eye. So either one of those deer I was going to shoot. I really wanted to shoot the big wide buck, but if I did see that funky deer, then that's the one I was going to shoot. Tyler was kind of in the same page. We're not paying any money for this hunt, so we can't be too choosy as to what we're going to shoot. So we get out there, get to our buddy Patrick's parents' place is where we're staying for the majority of the trip. And Patrick's parents are amazing. His mom is one heck of a cook, and it's a miracle that I didn't gain 10 pounds just from being down there with the way that woman cooks food. Man, she's a saint. So we're hunting Patrick's parents' place, which is 100 acres, big thick chunk of timber surrounded by a little bit of pasture, and there's deer and pigs on that property. The other property, like I said, is a couple big pieces that are surrounded by that river. So we go out, hunt the evening sit, and Tyler ends up shooting a doe. So first blood drawn, not even in the state for 6 hours. It's going to be a good trip. So we go out the next day to hunt that other property. As we're driving out that first day, we run into the rancher that runs cattle on the property. And he tells Patrick that they're selling the property at the end of the month. And our time is pretty much limited here. So this is early October, and we've got till the end of the month, but Patrick has a lot of stuff on this property. He's got several stands, several feeders, just box blind. So we have a couple days to get this thing done. So we go back in, sit the blind. Tyler is in another blind to the north of us. Man, he's just covered up in deer. Tons of does, tons of fawns, a couple little bucks, but just no mature deer. We get in there the next morning, walking into the blind, and it's raining a little bit. It's still dark, and we got to drop down into this little creek bottom and then come back up, and there's the feeder about 30 yards on the other side of the creek bottom. So we drop in the creek bottom. Like I said, it's raining, it's pissing rain, and get up, crest over the ridge, and I can see that there's 10 pigs underneath the feeder, and they're 30 yards away. So I range the feeder. My rangefinder can barely see through it, but I can see the silhouette of the feeder. And they're 25 yards. So set my sight, draw the bow back, and I can't see through my peep. So walk up closer. Same thing again at 20 yards. Can't see the freaking pigs through my peep. Walk up a little bit closer and hand Patrick my headlamp, and he turns it on, puts it in the palm of his hand, and we're at like 15 yards. So I draw back, he shines the light, but unfortunately it was on flood instead of spot, so it didn't really do a whole lot. So he's shining this light on the pigs, and I'm at full draw, and I can see kind of the silhouette of a pig. I mean, a black pig in the dark, it's really freaking hard to tell what's going on. But I ask him, I say, which direction is that one facing that's farthest to the right? So he tells me it's facing to the right. So I kind of guess where, head, body, shoulder, put the pin on, pull through the shot, thwack, shot goes off. Pigs all take off running, and walk up to the feeder, look around a little bit for blood, and don't see anything right away. But I mean, we're 15 minutes till it starts to get light, and we're here to kill deer. So we're hopping the blind, sit there. As I'm sitting there, it's getting light now. It's 7, 8 o'clock. And I look out, I see something sticking in the ground. So I pull my binoculars up, and it's my arrow. So I run out, grab the arrow. It's covered in blood, looks like good blood. I look around for a few minutes and then don't see any more, so I get back in the blind. So we get out of there about noon, go out, come back in, and there is a pile of vultures about 50 yards away from the feeder. I said, well, that's probably where my pig is. So we walk over there, and sure enough, pig's laying there dead. Absolute perfect shot, heart shot. And by that time, the pig was just covered in flies. It was picked apart by the vultures, so I didn't get any really good pictures of it, and obviously I didn't get any footage of the shot since it was in the dark, but that was cool. So we got 2 animals down in less than a day. So we're cruising at this point. Fast forward to that evening. We're in the blind, pig's over there dead, and we get to about 5 o'clock. And it's getting close. Feeder goes off at 6. So sitting there just kind of waiting, hoping some pigs come in, hoping something comes in, and that feeder goes off at like 6:15. A few minutes later, we look to the left, and there's some does coming in. So 7, 8 does, they all come piling in, and right behind them is a buck. So turns out that it's that funky buck, and he works his way in, kind of circles around, starts heading back to the feeder. And over the years of hunting in Texas, I've learned one very important lesson, and that is never ever shoot at a deer with its head down. They'll always duck your string, and you'll hit them high or you'll miss them clean, and it's never a good outcome. So I'm waiting for this deer to come in, and he stops, picks his head up. He's at like 22 yards, and the shot goes off. Yeah, dude. He ran about 60 yards and piled up. So we got a doe, a pig, and a buck down so far in a day and a half. We're flying high. Man, this has been an awesome trip. But since we got all that rain, the road was just, there's no way we're getting a vehicle back in there, or an ATV for that matter. It was just sloppy and slimy. So we got to drag this deer out, and It's about a mile. So we take turns, you know, 2 of us grab an antler, drag, switch, and we finally made it back to the truck. Man, we were freaking exhausted. And if you've hunted Texas in October, it's always super humid and it's always super hot. So we're covered in sweat, we're beat down, we're tired. But it was all worth it. Heck of an awesome deer. Now I've got my buck down and I'm on doe patrol. So we had a couple deer on camera, a couple decent bucks on camera over at Patrick's parents' place. At this point, Patrick he doesn't want to go back to the property that was getting sold. It's about a 2-hour drive, and he's kind of over it. We end up hunting one more sit over there, which we'll get back to later. But I end up going to Patrick's family lease, which, man, this place is a deer paradise. Patrick's hunting a really, really big deer, you know, big 170s, 180s type buck. He's got split G2s, split G3s, just a freaking giant deer. So I'm in a tree stand over a feeder, and Patrick's hunting a row of hay bales on the end of the property. So this buck was crossing from the timber on the other side of a field and then crossing through the hay bales and going into the big field to feed for the mornings and evenings. Well, he couldn't quite ever nail down exactly where this buck was crossing, so we hunted this place probably 3 or 4 times, and man, I'm not kidding, it was a slow day if I saw less than 50 deer. And that field just gets packed full of does and bucks. The feeder I think I had like 15 deer underneath me at 16 yards. Every single time I sat there. So I ended up decide to shoot a doe. So doe comes in, frickin' smoked her right through the heart. She runs off 40 yards, piles up dead, and I've got a doe on the ground. So man, I'm telling you, I wasn't able to shoot a buck on this property, you know, which makes sense. They pay a lot of money for this place and they want to preserve all of the deer for the people that are paying the money. No big deal. But I had at least 3 shooters underneath me, 16 yards for just 10, 15, 20 minutes, walking back and forth. And man, it's cool to see deer that big and just acting like deer, just feeding, interacting with other bucks. They're, you know, chasing the smaller bucks off. Man, it was just so cool. And there's really not many other places or opportunities aside from hunting a feeder that you actually get to see deer act like deer for such prolonged periods of time. So for me, that's one of the appeals to hunting over a feeder, is you get to see those deer just act naturally and interact with each other, and it's so cool. So meanwhile, Tyler's out at Patrick's parents' house just hunting the property, and he ends up getting a big group of pigs that come into the feeder, and he ends up shooting a pig. Tyler's got a deer, Tyler's got a pig, and it's just the trip success continues. And man, we're cleaning deer every single night, cleaning pigs every single night, and it's great practice for quartering and deboning deer. So the plan was to get all of the meat into the freezer, off the bone, into gallon freezer bags, freeze it solid, and then we can carry it on the plane and take it home. But we decided to go back to the 2 big properties for one last sit. That big wide buck is still showing up on the camera on the other side of the river on that property. So we go in, sit in a ladder stand over the feeder, and it's 5 o'clock. We're just getting settled in the tree. I'm about to get my camera arm put on the tree, and doe starts coming in. So I'm turned around messing with my stuff, and I could see the doe coming in, so I have to stop, turn on my phone, record with my phone, And this doe comes in, starts feeding underneath, and she's hard quartering away. Tyler ends up shooting a good shot. He's shooting a gigantic cutting broadhead. He's shooting a G5 Mega Meat, so like a 2.5 inch, 3 inch cutting diameter broadhead. Just a massive hole no matter what it goes through. So she's quartering away. As he's about to shoot, she turns a little bit more towards us. So that quartering away aiming point now is too far back. So he shoots, smokes this doe, arrow passes through, and we can tell that she's hit a little bit far back, but she ends up stopping at like 15 yards away. Generally, if you hit them and they stop right away, you hit them in the liver. That's, from what I've seen, that's kind of how it goes. So she kind of walks away another 30, 40 yards, stops, beds down, and that's all she wrote. She ends up falling over and dying right there. So we're waiting a little bit more. It's getting closer to last light, and Tyler sees the wide buck like 100 yards away, just cut through a little opening in the timber and then disappear. And man, I was on edge. I was hoping that big boy was going to come in, but he never ended up coming back in. So that was unfortunate. You know, it doesn't always work out. Most of the time, those really big bucks, they don't always come into the feeders. But in this case, this was our last sit on that property. After this, the plug was pulled on that. So we end up going back, cleaning Tyler's doe, and carry on hunting. So now we're just kind of hunting hit Patrick's parents' property and hoping that something shows up. So this is, I think, is our last, yeah, it was our last morning. So I'm in the ground blind, just like 200 yards down from the house, and Tyler's in one kind of around the corner of the property on a different feeder. So this is my first morning sitting on the property there, and I end up having a little buck come out right as the feeder goes off, and then about 15 minutes later I have another really nice 8-point come out, but he is just on the edge of being legal. So Texas has a 13-inch inside spread minimum to be legal, and I'm telling you, this freaking deer was right on the edge. And man, I did not want to shoot a not legal deer and get in trouble for that, so I decided to not even go for it. Come to find out that another one of our buddies later in the year ends up shooting that buck during the rifle season, and he is legal by 3/4 of an inch. So snooze you lose, but whatever. And honestly, I kind of felt bad because I had that buck and then another nice wide 8-point buck come in to about 50 yards. And to this point, Tyler still hasn't seen a mature deer. So it's how it goes sometimes, but it doesn't always go your way. But he never ended up seeing a mature buck, unfortunately, and he ended up leaving the trip with shooting the 2 does and shooting the pig. But man, it's such a cool trip, and to be able to connect with another buck in Texas for me was awesome. I've had some really good success there over the years. You know, it's all about building relationships. You know, you make friends, and generally they have, you know, places that they'll let you hunt. And the biggest thing with that is adhering to the rules that they give you. You know, if we go out there and we start shooting deer that are too young or that we're not supposed to shoot, then they're not going to ever want us back. And maintaining those friendships, you know, building relationships with people is huge, no matter what facet of life you're in. And hunting is always a really good way to build these long-term relationships and really have friends that'll stay with you for life. And I'm so grateful to Patrick for letting us hunt his properties and his spots and taking care of us and giving us places to stay and having his parents feed us. It's awesome. Patrick's a salt of the earth kind of dude, and I absolutely love him. And another successful trip to Texas. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Don't forget, like and subscribe, leave a comment, and hope to see you out there.